I never thought owning a home in a quiet neighborhood would turn into a war zone. But here I am, standing in my own front yard, watching my dog, Max, chase his favorite ball, while across the street, HOA Karen glares at us like I've committed the crime of the century. You'd think letting your dog enjoy a sunny afternoon would be legal. Apparently in this neighborhood, it's a punishable offense. It all started last Tuesday. I was sipping coffee on my porch, enjoying the morning breeze, when I saw her marching down the street in her signature floral dress, clipboard in hand. That clipboard has caused more tension in our neighborhood than any actual emergency ever could. My heart sank because I knew she was coming for me. She stopped in front of my yard, her heels clicking aggressively against the pavement. Your dog cannot be in your yard unsupervised, she barked across the street. I blinked coffee halfway to my lips. Excuse me, I asked. She waved her clipboard like a scepter. I have complaints from 3 neighbors. Max is a menace, and this is a violation of HOA regulations. You need to keep him inside at all times, or I will report you. I wanted to laugh. Max, a golden retriever with more sweetness than teeth, a menace. This woman had clearly lost touch with reality, but I stayed calm, my mind racing. I had lived in this neighborhood for over 10 years, and I knew every clause of the HOA rules, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing that said my dog couldn't enjoy his yard. Karen, I said carefully, keeping my tone polite but firm. Max is well behaved and I follow all HOA rules. I'm happy to show you that he's not causing any issues. Her face twisted. She didn't want to hear logic. She wanted control. She muttered something about bylaws, something about public safety, and then turned on her heel, storming back down the street, muttering threats that she'd take this up with the board. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what she said. Max has been part of this family longer than most of the neighbors have been here. I wasn't about to let some self-appointed neighborhood dictator bully us into hiding inside our own home. I made a decision I was going to fight this, and I would make sure Karen regretted ever crossing me. The next morning, I started my research. HOA rules, county pet ordinances, even legal precedents from past dog-related cases in our state. Every document I read strengthened my resolve. Karen might have power in this HOA, but the law was on my side. Then came the first act of retaliation. Karen had a habit of leaving passive-aggressive notes on my doorstep, criticizing everything from my garden to my mailbox. I found a new one tucked under the welcome mat, written in her scratchy, judgmental handwriting. If Max continues to roam unsupervised, the board will take action. Consider this your final warning. I laughed out loud, feeling a mix of amusement and irritation. Final warning. This wasn't a TV show, this was my home, and I wasn't about to let her turn it into her personal battlefield. That afternoon I decided to let Max out as usual. She was watching from across the street, peering through her tinted windows like a hawk. I waved at her innocently, Max bounding happily around the yard. Her eyes narrowed, and I swear she clenched her fists so tightly her knuckles went white. I knew then that this was only the beginning. Karen didn't know what she had unleashed. Asterisk, by the next morning, Karen had stepped up her game. I was enjoying my coffee on the porch when I noticed a small group of neighbors gathered near her house, whispering and pointing at Max. My dog wagged his tail happily, oblivious to the brewing storm, but I could feel the tension. Karen had turned this into a neighborhood spectacle, and I was at the center of it. I tried to stay calm. I reminded myself that Max hadn't done anything wrong. He chased balls, rolled in the grass, and barked at squirrels, hardly criminal behavior. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. She thrived on drama. I watched as she strutted across the street again, clipboard in hand, like she was leading an army into battle. You need to put him inside immediately, she shouted, her voice echoing across the cul-de-sac. This is your final warning. The HOA board will take action. I shook my head. Karen, he's not harming anyone. He's just a dog enjoying the yard. I'm following all HOA rules. She glared at me as if my calmness was an act of defiance. Then, before I could respond, she turned and marched back to her house, muttering something about neighbor safety and bylaws violations. It was clear she was planning her next move, and that's when I noticed the tiny paw prints in the mud along the sidewalk. Someone had scattered some kind of sticky substance or chemical near the edge of my yard. Max sniffed it, recoiled, but thankfully didn't step on it again. My blood boiled. Karen had crossed a line. I knew it was time to escalate, but in a smart way. I installed a few discreet cameras around the yard, making sure to cover every angle. I wasn't about to be blindsided again. If Karen thought she could bully me or Max without consequences, she was sorely mistaken. The very next day, Karen tried her next tactic. She sent an official-looking email to me, CCing the HOA board. In it, she claimed that Max's freedom to roam in the yard unsupervised was a serious safety violation and demanded immediate compliance. She even attached blurry photos of Max from across the street, taken without my consent. I stared at the screen, fuming. Not only was this ridiculous, but it was also illegal in terms of privacy. But I didn't reply impulsively. I documented everything, every photo, every email, every note she left. I knew I needed evidence if this went further. That evening I decided to get a little creative. Max and I went outside. as usual, and I set up a little show for Karen. I hung colorful flags, placed Max's favorite toys around, and let him romp freely, all captured on the cameras. I even added a little sign near the yard: Max, yard supervisor. The next morning Karen arrived, furious. She stopped mid-stride when she saw the yard fully in view, with Max prancing around like he owned the place. "This is unacceptable," she shouted, throwing her hands in the air. "I will not allow this to continue." I smiled calmly. "Karen, everything you see is completely within HOA regulations. Max is supervised, and the yard is safe. I've documented everything. If you have a problem, take it up with the board, but I suggest you read the rules first." She glared at me, muttered under her breath, and stomped away. But I could see the gears turning in her mind. This wasn't over. Oh no, not by a long shot. That night I reviewed the footage from the cameras, and there it was, proof of Karen lurking near my property, peeking over the fence, trying to catch Max doing anything wrong. My heart raced. I had the upper hand. Now, the next morning I took my phone and sent a single polite message to the HOA board attaching the video. "I wanted to make you aware of some concerning behavior from a neighbor. Please see the footage attached." I didn't even need to mention names. The footage spoke for itself. Karen had no idea the tables were turning. And Max, he had no idea he had just become the unlikely hero in our HOA drama. Asterisk. The next morning I woke up to an eerie silence. Normally, the neighborhood was buzzing with chatter, lawnmowers, and the occasional dog bark. But today, it was quiet. Too quiet. I glanced out the window and immediately noticed Karen's car parked suspiciously across the street. She was sitting inside, scanning my yard like a hawk, clipboard in hand. I poured my coffee, trying not to let her presence get under my skin. Max, of course, was oblivious. He bounded into the yard, sniffing and rolling in the grass as if nothing was happening. I couldn't help but smile. He had no idea he was the center of a full-blown HOA war. Karen stormed into the yard before I even had a chance to say hello. "This ends today," she yelled, pointing at Max. "You will follow my orders, or I will make sure the board fines you heavily." I raised an eyebrow, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Karen, Max is well-behaved, supervised, and fully compliant with HOA rules. You've already seen the footage. The board is aware of your behavior." Her face twisted in anger. "You think this gives you the right to flaunt the rules? I will not allow a dog to run wild in this neighborhood." I decided it was time for the ultimate move. Slowly, I walked over to my fence, pulling out a tablet. "Karen," I said, holding it up, "let me show you exactly what's happening." I pressed play. The footage captured her sneaking around my yard, peeking over fences, and even trying to tempt Max with food to get him to bark or misbehave. Every move was recorded, every sneaky glance documented. Her face turned pale as she watched herself on video. She tried to protest, but I just smiled. "It seems the problem isn't Max," I said. "It's you. And now, the board has the evidence too." Karen sputtered, lost for words. She had underestimated me and Max. The next few hours were a blur. The HOA board convened an emergency meeting after I submitted the video. I attended calm and composed, while Karen fumed in the corner. Every argument she made was dismissed. Every claim she filed against Max was invalidated. By the end of the day, she had no choice but to apologize, at least officially. But I didn't stop there. I added a little humor to the situation. I organized a neighborhood yard day, inviting everyone to come see Max in action, playing, fetching, and supervising the yard. Karen tried to protest, but the neighbors loved it. Max became a local celebrity, a symbol of freedom, joy, and resistance against unnecessary control. By the end of the week, Karen had retreated into her house, clipboard forgotten on the counter. The neighborhood had shifted. People smiled and waved when I walked outside. Max had his yard, his freedom, and his reign as the beloved canine of the community. I watched him one evening, tail wagging, rolling in the grass under the sunset. I realized that standing up for what's right doesn't always mean confrontation. It means preparation, patience, and sometimes letting your loyal dog do all the work while you capture the proof. Karen might try again someday, but she now knows one thing: never mess with Max or the person who loves him. And as for me, I had my yard, my dog, and the satisfaction of seeing a bully finally get the wake-up call she deserved. Because sometimes the quietest battles are the most satisfying victories.